Ballston. Don't make me laugh.
I wasn't. That wasn't a jest. That was a real fire.
Bless you.
Oh, you don't.
Hey, John.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay.
We're just waiting for Jared's machine to join. Oop, there it is. I'm gonna mute.
Am I expecting anyone besides you two for outside assistance? Anybody zooming in?
We're working on video. Hang on a second.
No problem.
Let's give it a whirl. How about now? Can you hear us?
Yes. Oh my gosh, there's so many more of you.
Excellent.
Now, are we expecting anyone from the outside to be zooming in that I should be looking for?
I don't think so. Darvin said he will not be with us today, so I didn't hear if anybody is joining remotely.
Okay.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I don't know if they're there unless I look for them. So you guys got to tell me if we're expecting somebody.
Yeah. 11. All right. So yeah. So Darvin's not here. I don't know where Mike is, and Anna will be late.
Okay.
Driving through town earlier today. Should be here.
All right. One more minute. We can get started.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got the smallest table here today for the most people we've ever had.
Well, it's from my out. We're gonna put our arms around each other, and we're gonna.
Usually we're separated.
That's nice.
That's nice.
Nothing. I have no. It looks very similar. Actually, no.
HPOE book? Oh no. I had to bring a work computer tonight.
This is my work. This is essentially what mine is very similar, but it's a different little thing. Motorcycles are amazing, especially at like 3:50 in the morning every morning.
Mm.
You got this one guy that just wants to get on it, and then every morning wind it out. It's like
They go by my house all the time.
it's probably the same guy. You know, I'm seriously tempted to like wake up and be like, "Hey, like seriously, you're waking up the entire night." It like echoes off building. It's so loud, inappropriate. Anyway,
Thinks they're being cool.
Hmm?
They think they're being cool.
3:50 in the morning, everyone can see how cool he is.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I'm sure they're all thinking it too.
Yeah. I hear from my neighbors all the time. Did you hear that? But how could I not? Yeah. All right, 7:01. So let's get started. Okay. So the agenda tonight will be Pledge of Allegiance. Zach directive and approach, basically the email that I sent out. I was going to read it off so we all can see our heads nod. We'll talk about initial drafts, comments in the initial draft due today. And then the rest of the time will be for public forum options. So Chris sent over a lot of stuff for us to consider. And then maybe at the end, we'll do a go, no go decision. And we have one more meeting on the 3rd between now and the scheduled.
Do we have a meeting planned on the 3rd?
We do, I believe.
Okay,
We
cool.
do. And then last but not least, if we don't run out of steam, public comments. So with that said, let's start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Alrighty then. All right. So Zach, directive and approach. So basically, I sent an email on 9/9, just my thoughts on our committee. It seems like there's been some discrepancies among the public and us about what our directives are. And I want to make sure we're on the same page. So I didn't hear much feedback back on my email. So it's basically the same thing of zoning advisory committee. We are appointed. We serve under the pleasure of the mayor. It's his committee. Advisory, this is the A in advisory is, or zoning advisory committee is A. Our job is to advise. We're not supposed to draft this legislation. We're not supposed to create it. We rely on our consultant to do that. Now that said, it is on us to make sure the will of the people, and we bring opinion and we guide him and we provide any and all input to the whole thing. And then we should be responsible for taking what we think is a complete draft and submit it to the board. And at that point, it's up to the public and the board of trustees to debate and go over everything that we think is sufficient for the law. Now that said, I don't anticipate us all getting on the same page with every single topic, but I think there is a lot of agreement on most topics, and that's okay. If we don't come to a consensus on one, we do our best we can, and then we serve that up to the board and let them hash it out with the public and make sure everybody can have their comments here. That's
Matt, just one thing, I did review the charter before we started this meeting.
Yeah.
And just so we're clear, I think it's maybe a stretch to say this is a mayor's committee. This is a committee formed to assist the village board of trustees. So we're representing the entire governing body of
Okay.
the village.
I would debate.
And
There's actually a legal distinction between a mayor's advisory
Yes.
committee.
Okay,
and one that's-
fair enough,
Yeah,
whatever.
and they're
Okay.
different, they're
Get that from the
distinct.
statement. Be that as it may, we have come together to put our best foot forward for the board. So that's our job, and not to write this thing. And I think we'll have a lot of good consensus on most things. And if they don't, that's okay. We'll do the best we can for the board. Yeah, any thoughts, questions?
Yeah, I'd
comment?
like to have a comment. I spent about an hour and a half. First day I really have been so busy. Jared, you had a lot of very good points. I think you and Rory, are the only two that commented that I seen. There might be somewhere else that I'm
I
missing.
think more folks have commented since then.
I've only seen 4 out of 11 people, so I was gonna make a comment.
Ran out of time today, tomorrow.
So
I didn't add mine until this afternoon.
I did as well. I
The
didn't check them.
17th.
some seniors.
I didn't see yours either.
That's.
Yeah, I didn't see yours either.
We need to talk about that because I confirmed
No,
with
just-
Chris that the procedure I followed would be an automatic addition of the comment.
Well, we gotta get them all on there.
Yeah.
I'll show you how to do it. Pretty easy.
Because I only seen yours and Rory's. Jared, you had a lot of good points. Rory, you too, both of you. Thank you for doing that. Marilyn, you did it. And you said you did it too. I didn't comment. Sorry, I didn't comment.
7 hours.
Yeah, I've spent a bit of time with it as well.
This time of year, I'm
Yep.
very busy, but both of you and you two also, thank you very much for doing that. Then we have to get her, because I don't see her. None of you.
It's
Yeah.
super straightforward. I'll pull up the right
Your
deal. Be in the document. You highlight, you right click. You comment, and you just open it.
I did that.
I don't.
So
So
why
it
is
must be in
it
the
not
wrong,
there?
must be in the wrong document.
There were more than one, there was more than one copy of it
I hope
in
not.
the folder. I think it was pretty obvious to me which one was being updated, but I saw at least 2 copies in the folder.
Should only be one.
No, I think you're right, Cameron. When I went in
I
today,
didn't even open the one that hadn't been edited more recently, but it's possible that they're in there.
yes, I did.
Yeah,
take a
Laura,
look.
looks like Rory created one on the 17th.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's 2.
I opened it to start and then I ran out of time. So
So that's all I see. So whatever you did, I hate to say, maybe you do it again or find it and copy and paste it over.
I have no idea why it would not have worked. I was on a Wi-Fi. I did save my work. I did share it to me. So hopefully if I have that DOCX file, I can recover.
Did
But-
did you share it from, did you go to the Google Drive and click it from the Google Drive?
I went to the highlighted link.
Okay,
Started to add my comments. I
Yeah.
created, I made comments on Chris's comments, and then I made my own comments,
interesting.
and
All right, we'll take a look at that
Share
afterwards
it.
and see where that is. There
Like
comments
some-
around there somewhere.
Yeah.
We'll see where they are. All right, that leads us into the second topic, or third topic, is the drafts, or the comments for the drafts. I saw 4 folks' comments, and Marilyn's a 5th, but
We ran out of time. I will have it by tomorrow.
that's fine. I set an arbitrary deadline, so that way we all can kind of get motivated to do it, so when Chris comes back, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, kind of thing.
Yeah, same thing, I'll have it done. I
Okay,
have a lot of shit going on at work.
I just ran out of time, so.
okay. And Anna and Pete,
Yeah, and you know what, I see those, they covered most of the topics. I mean, I could add some things here and there. I mean, I think Chris did a pretty all right job. But
I think so.
their comments were right on point, what they talk about, and what area we need to talk about.
Yeah. And here's my thoughts on this. So this is just initial comments, doesn't mean we can't go back, doesn't mean we can continue to debate. Chris gave us initial draft. Well, there's another point I'll mention. It seems like there's some confusion here. This initial draft for Chris to get us to react to. He went to get our gap analysis document that we diligently put together. He went point for point and responded back and rebutted some of the things and make sure that he acknowledged that those comments. And then Chris wanted to reach out to key stakeholders. That includes planning, zoning chairs, historic district commission, building inspector, mayor, and there's like maybe someone else that I don't remember, but all the key stakeholders for phase of this, which is mostly the process and procedure, not like the content, the substance that we're talking about. So that's what he did to get his first draft to us to react to. Doesn't mean there's any decisions made. It just means that we have something now to work on.
Has he completed that process? Because I don't think that is actually what.
What do you mean completed?
Has he completed outreach to the stakeholders?
For his first draft, it's done. Yeah, he's got it. Now, it doesn't say he can't continue to speak with stakeholders. The next,
Building inspector said he hadn't talked to him at all.
And I
I've
don't
tried-
think
I
he's
can
talked
lead a
to the
horse-
historic district commission.
he has, and I know that because I sat next to him while I was doing that during the April walkthrough of the village. So there was that. Also, what did you say?
That we were
The
told
building
about
inspector,
that.
I try to get him to, lead a horse to water and like set up time, and building inspector Dave.
Reach out to him or for him.
We get on the same page with Chris. I'm like, call him, meet him, whatever you want to do. I set up some time to spend. I don't know what happened. Everybody's here as an adult. Want to reach out to Chris? I mean, like,
I'll
so
talk to him again.
yeah.
I'm not even sure he got here to be honest with you, because I talked to him this week. So he's like oblivious to that
Who?
building inspector. So I'm not sure he was ever sent the original document to review. That doesn't mean he wasn't, okay, or that he's not ignoring it. I'm simply saying it might be a good idea to
Yeah.
send him the latest version with all of the comments and then let him add his 2
Yeah.
cents.
Because he's definitely got some info.
Yes. I'm pretty sure Chris did say I want to say he did speak to him, but be that as may, I'll reiterate and I'll attempt to have Dave reach out or Chris reach out, and I'll send that draft to him.
Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago. I talked to him. He's quite talked to him since prior to.
Who knows? Back in April and May, I think they were trying to get to him. All right, so I'll reach out to Dave.
And it has been done with the historic district commission.
Say again?
It has not been done. There's been no outreach other than what you mentioned in April
Okay.
to the historic district commission.
Okay. So that's first draft. First phase. The second phase, as you know, there's a lot of placeholders in there.
So I'm sorry, I have one question. In this document. That,
What
it's a
document
comments
is
from ad hoc zoning committee. It's got Dave, building inspector.
But that's not our group.
That was the ad hoc committee from,
Years
Oh,
ago.
yeah, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We've had Dave for 10 years, so he hasn't been here that long.
However long ago it was, yeah.
I think that there's an important thing that's missed in the description of the process that you just gave,
Mhm.
which is he's drafting code based on the comments of small parts of this group and consultation with particular stakeholders that you've been able to get a hold of. But we have a guiding document that he should be basing what he's writing on. He should be starting with the comprehensive plan. It's the second point in the purpose of the code.
Yeah, I think he's
Right,
doing
and
that.
I think several things in this already contradict what is written in the comprehensive plan.
So let me see if I can.
That's the thing that I feel like we need to be pulling back to. We have a document that's gone through a process, that's gone through extensive public consultation, and that's been adopted by the village board. And we need to start from that as a basis. And yes, there's a lot of other stuff we need to discuss, but we shouldn't have the basis of the code that's being drafted that we then comment on be something that's in contradiction to a document that's been drafted to be guidance for this. So we should be going back to that as a basis fairly frequently and as a framework for how we're
Can you give
thinking about this.
an example of that?
I think there are a number of places where we've really focused on a few things, particularly the timing of which things he's delivered and which things he hasn't. But I mean, the obvious example is the real focus on getting rid of the historic district commission, which is not in the comprehensive plan. And I'll say,
It's not the draft.
I will, yes, it is. It's in, read his comments. He has a specific comment that says we are getting rid of the historic. I have been told that yes, it's in a comment near the end.
You mean
It's in one of those? Yeah.
not
Yeah.
or
No. It's one of Chris's. It's very specifically. It's near the end.
There's two
Scroll down to the
comments, I
end right
think.
now. There's a
One
very
says
specific comment where he
that
says
we're doing away,
we
we've been directed that we're doing away with the historic district, and then a second comment.
district. Yeah, not the commission.
A second comment.
Yep.
That's me.
Okay. I will say I am not. I think there are things that need to change with the historic commission, but I don't think that we should be immediately starting with something that is coming from someone who is not who is not a member of this board, someone who is not in line with what the comprehensive plan starts. And I think there are discussions to be had about what the historic commission does and what its role is. But we shouldn't be starting with a comment that says someone has told me we're getting rid of the historic commission. And I can scroll down to that right now.
For one, I don't think that's.
It's very specifically
in
right.
there.
I think it meant the district, not the commission itself.
No, it says the commission.
Okay.
And I can find that very easily.
So do you think that the zoning needs to be in lockstep with the comprehensive plan? Is that what?
I think that the initial drafts that we're getting should start with the guidance coming from the comprehensive plan, because that's the purpose of it.
I think he is good. He's also in consultation.
And
with all key
that's
stakeholders.
something that we can discuss, but I think there are a number of places where there are distinct differences between what's being proposed here and what the comprehensive plan says. And I think that we need to make sure that we remember that that is a guiding document that has much more of a buy-in and mandate than we have. And that
Not
we
true.
need to.
That's not true legally. It's not true. Not the equal buy-in.
You're saying that there hasn't been more public input from the comprehensive plan. There hasn't been
There has
more
been.
process, that there hasn't been approval from the village board.
As I understand it, that is a very large
The
tool that
second point that says purpose, the second point of the zoning that says purpose. Purpose of this code is to promote public health, safety, and general welfare. B, implement the policy of the most recently adopted Village of Ballston Spa comprehensive plan.
I say we table these things. There are several topics I've heard contentious. PDDs and Historic District Commission. I would like to take the time, this time, to focus on the slides that Chris has put together for us, so we can make a decision whether we do October 10th or not.
I fully agree, and I don't
In
want
the
to
same
distract.
time-
I just want to make sure that we remember that we need to be going back to that as something that is a guiding document that we have.
I agree. So I will, as we make comments, I will collect topics that we want to, as a group, revisit. I've heard two so far in reading the comments, PDDs and Historic District Commission. So once we get through the public comment, public 1010 meeting, we will most likely turn our attention to these topics with Chris, so we can talk through some of these things. Does that make sense? So if people don't have their comments in, and I'll work with Marilyn offline to get her comments in.
Okay, sorry, I'm
So we
just going to
can
read
have-
this. Chris Bushel, August 1st. Our understanding is the historic district model is being removed from Ballston Spa. Please confirm that this section can be removed. If village may consider historic districts in the future, it can be kept. unless covered in another part of the code. This is on page 86.
Oh, the district, yeah, I think the district, not the commission itself.
Historic district model.
District,
Ob-
yes.
Obviously, there are different
I think-
interpretations of
I think
that,
as
but
I
I think that
understood
that's
it-
something we have to discuss, because this is something we have not discussed as a committee.
Workshop.
It is something that is in opposition to the comprehensive plan, and I don't think we should be making decisions based on something that's been told to him by someone who is giving their own personal opinion. This is in opposition to the comprehensive plan.
That's fair, right, that's fair. But I think that district is getting rid of the district so the commission oversees the whole village, not just the district. I think that's what that intention was.
But it's not clear.
It's not clear. I have a big problem with how it's written. I'm like, this makes no sense. None of it makes sense.
I'm saying, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I just want to make sure that we are thinking about where we are starting as a basis, not individual comments.
Yeah.
But we have the document as the comprehensive plan as a document to start from. We should be starting from that, not from individual comments.
Remember, the ZAC has not made a recommendation to spread the historic district throughout the village. That might be one person's opinion, but we haven't had a discussion about that.
I agree with that.
Right.
All right, let's see. Where is, all right. So, next one is Chris sent over quite a few boards for us to take a look at. Whether we like them, we don't like them. There's things in there we need more of, there's less in there. I think the goal is to get through as many of these boards as possible. I don't want to sit there and have 20 minutes on one board, we have 6 or 7 to go through. But ultimately, get through as many as we can, and then collectively understand, should we use October 3rd to complete these boards and get them all ready? Or at the end of this meeting, determine if we don't have enough, we're in the wrong direction, we can't go forward with October 10th, and we need to punt this meeting and repurpose it. Now, the options go, no go. Go is we go with what we have from Chris and then enhance it, or we don't have enough, we don't feel comfortable with this approach. Chris has indicated that he's comfortable with either way. One of them, if we go with these boards, he has specific input that he's actually taking the time to outline for each board to say, hey, this is what I'm looking for, this is the intent of it. And if not, this approach will be thrown away if we don't want to go with this. And we will continue down fleshing out a large zoning law. And we will have a public input later down the road where the focus of that public hearing would be sections of the document itself,
Well, why can't we discuss Chris's boards
which we are.
and make suggestions to Chris to change or modify things?
That's what we're doing.
Add or delete,
That's what I just said.
rather than push this down the road to another meeting.
That's what I said.
That's what he just
Okay,
said.
I heard you say something different, so
What did-
that's why I'm just
what did you think
clarifying.
I
Let's
said?
get on with the boards and take a look at them
Yeah,
because.
and if we have enough, we'll go forward. If we're not,
Yeah.
we'll punt and then we'll reevaluate the type of engagement. Sounded like we may want to actually flesh out the document more and then bring that document
Yeah.
as a public forum instead later. All right, so let me get these boards up. Hey Jen, I'm not sure if you can hear me still, but I am going to,
On mute.
You're on mute.
oh, she can hear me right here. If I put myself off mute, it'll just create an echo chamber. No bueno. I would like to share, I would like to share my screen. Let me see if I can do this. Boom, am I sharing my screen? Boom, okay. Fantabulous. Let me just kind of
Here you go.
minimize this here. All right. So I don't have my notes in front of me because I am sharing. So bear with. Does someone else have Chris's?
Yes. This
Um,
one is the intro map. Set at welcome, sign in, a map showing Ballston Spa. Inviting people to place a dot around where they live in the village.
Yep. So it looks like we'll have, let's see. We'll have stickies or dots, or we have markers. I was thinking either we have those little sticky, like little
Friends.
push pins, anything to do that, and then we can leave them there and people can just kind of put where they live.
I think it would be helpful if we had a few more street names on there. East High Street, Route 50 or Church Ave. And a few more street labels to assist people. And I think there's gonna be more than just residents here. There should be other dots representing other colors for non-residents and business owners or, stakeholders. Dot options for non-residents, business owners, stakeholders.
Non-residents being different than stakeholders?
Yeah. Could be visitors.
Well, where would they put their dot?
I really don't care. They could put it in Wiswall Park for that matter.
Well,
Or
that's not the
business zone.
point. That's not the point of the document.
Right. I mean, it's either a stakeholder or your resident.
Sellers just put their,
Yeah.
On their
That
business.
somebody that lives down on East, is I'm gonna come and put a dot on there, they don't have any interest.
But they would be if
Okay,
Friends of the Cape Ross, or they're a veterans group and they're executive director.
Or they just live on, right on the other side of the village line.
okay. We got some good feedback. So are we all comfortable with this? If we add a few more streets and have some push pins or other, I would say resident, business owner, or other stakeholder. Yeah.
And these are gonna be blown up, right? We're talking.
they
Because I understand they're on
poster boards, right?
easels and
Yeah.
people can walk up to them and kind of like, stick your nose in. Like,
Great.
yeah. Yeah, because I actually minimize this so we can get them on the
Yeah.
screen.
And I think Marilyn, on the point of street names, will be there. And I think part of our job will also be to help people. Like if they're say, I'm on Division Street, I don't know where it is, we can help find them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Marion, what's board 2? Some of them say 1 or 2 boards, so this is board number 2.
Unfortunately, this one says, wait a
I
second.
think it describes,
Existing
Pages
zoning.
2 and 3 zoning.
yes,
That's
2
what
and
that
3 at
is.
the same time.
I have it, says,
Oh, yeah, future zoning
Got it
map,
right
2
here.
boards.
I'm projecting. I just want to have Chris's notes because he annotated each one. That'd be very good to help guide us as we go through.
This is future zoning map, 2 boards. This will show the existing zoning map.
Yep.
A brief description of how the village is divided into districts. It'll then show a first draft of proposed zoning districts linked from the recommendations of the comp plan via the land use vision map. It's important to note that a land use map, existing or future, is not the same as the zoning map.
Yep, that makes sense. So this first piece here is the existing zoning map.
Well, not really.
Okay, is there another one we need to have Chris put up here?
He needs to represent the fact that there is a historic district overlay.
Can you read that comment there? I think there's more to his directive, his directive in that.
at the bottom, the relationship to the.
No, Chris's notes on this board 2 and 3.
Yeah, purpose change in districts is significant change in zoning, the intent to help realize the land use version. For the comp plan, so it's obviously bringing up the comp plan there. It's an opportunity for the community to comment on the boundaries and other thoughts, feedback. I've taken a pass at future zoning maps. I've aligned borders, parcels.
Yep.
Vision for the more purple or more general bubbles. Please provide any comments, actual boundaries, districts. Zach knows community far better than I do.
Yep.
So could they please change it? I have a little up on my phone to read it. They can change it based on local knowledge. I suspect this will take some time for discussion. For example, the maps divides a single residential district into numerous districts based on the land use vision map. Village may not need so many new districts from existing roads are substantially the same. So obviously, if they're similar, just make them all the same instead of having different ones in the same area. Conversely, there may be some areas that are more distinct and would benefit from their own district.
But I think all those comments refer to the next board on the next page, which is called the zoning district descriptions. We're supposed to be looking at the existing zoning map as it's published in the comprehensive plan.
And one of Chris's comments does say, I know there needs to be discussion and direction regarding the historic district. I've left this off the zoning map
That's
for
what I'm
now
thinking.
because I think this is
That's
an
what I'm
area
thinking
that
too.
needs to be discussed. But I think this is our opportunity to discuss that.
But
So we want to put the existing zoning district lines on here?
not only that, but if anybody noticed, none of the open space parkland is identified in this map.
Okay.
You know, for example, everybody remember the cemetery? This map reflects the cemetery is residential. That's not right.
Well, in a way.
And there's,
It's residents there, yeah.
and Kelly Park is not reflected. It's shown as residential. I think that's, you know,
All right,
misrepresenting.
so I hear,
It's misrepresenting.
Do we need zoning for that we don't have right now for?
If we
park
scroll
areas?
down, we had already put that in. If you scroll down to the,
Hang on,
not the
taking
next board, but the bottom half.
so
of
what have I
this.
heard? So I want to make sure I get Chris's direction. So add historic district commission lines. Add what else did I hear? I heard one more in there.
Parks,
Parks and open
green
space.
spaces.
Parks and
Parks, cemeteries.
They just have to scroll down, Jared, to the next half of
hang on,
this
I
page.
I'm just trying to capture, we don't
You'll
run it
see the
over.
Actual zoning category.
Well, and then this is the land use vision map.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this is what came out of the comp plan.
I haven't the biggest idea.
So
Looking
what
at
you're
the map
saying,
right now, it's R1, I think,
So does that reflect what it is?
No,
Okay.
or the future, what it could be.
Kelly Park is not R1.
What
It's-
is it coded right now, today?
According to what the consultant put up there, residential housing.
And
It's in a floodplain.
What they're showing is what it is.
Yeah. That's the existing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know about the existing map to know parks identified on there.
They don't.
Yeah,
okay,
but the future
That makes
land use
sense.
vision map calls out those green spaces.
That's what that is, existing. That is the existing zoning map.
okay. So what I'm hearing adding to the existing zoning map is historic district commission, historic district lines, as well as parks and open spaces. Okay,
Parks and open spaces may be coded R1, right?
Yeah, and I think we don't need to
So
call
we
them out
don't
as a
need to
separate
call them
zone.
separate. Okay, that makes sense.
Economic enhancement.
There's only,
And that defies logic.
they are not.
Not on this
The
though.
only cultural economic enhancement is right across the street from me, which is Delphi's. No, it's Delphi's.
So Anna, as the chair, is this an accurate map or is it?
It is.
Saying
Yes, it is.
outside of the existing map?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Do you have anybody have a concern with adding historic district commission boundaries? Okay.
Where's Wiswell
Any other
Park?
boundaries? Any other thing?
Wiswell Park in there?
It's in the central business district.
Yeah, CBD. Yeah, it's like we're here somewhere,
Across the street, yeah, right there.
somewhere like right here. All right.
Up one block.
Yep. All right, so I'll make a note to Chris to add the
Sorry.
historic district in here to the current map.
It's all R1.
That's not.
This is mine, right here. R2.
Yeah.
All right, board 3.
So, sorry, real quick. Okay, this is board 3 for updating after.
That's is the
Okay.
proposal
Yeah,
piece of
okay.
it, yes.
That's right, according to the village, separate.
Yeah, I just looked it up too.
Except for the overlay. So if we add that,
Okay,
So.
okay. Anything else? Any other concerns outside of?
This is central business.
Even if we don't, the parks aren't necessarily a different zoning district, maybe we could outline them on the map so that people are just aware, like these are green spaces right now that are currently in an R1.
another, well, or those shown on the comprehensive plan.
They are in the future land skids.
Keep in mind when we're discussing this with people, we don't want to overcomplicate it so that people can't understand what's.
It's fair.
If we're adding parks in, it's another color.
Yeah.
Now, is one more thing that people have to pay attention to. If there's something people have to react to that has to do with parks.
Yeah.
Then we want that there.
Yeah.
If there's not, then to me, it's a distraction.
I
So
agree.
I agree.
using vision map then, which will very easily show
It's also on that
It's right
board.
here.
colors in use right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Which
using
was in
it.
the comprehensive plan, which is easy for someone to relate to.
We're already using it.
So
right.
that'll all be on one board together.
So the proposed is this one. Any other concerns outside of adding the historic district boundaries?
Yeah, we don't have the proposed green space up in Colonial Hills.
Is that a zoning? Is that a separate zone?
Zoning. This
This is zoning.
is zoning,
Okay, this is draft future.
zoning,
I understand that.
So you want to have a separate,
was
you want
a-
to have a separate district for parks?
no.
If you go back up
Because I didn't see anywhere in the
and
doc.
see our vision was to specifically color code open space and parks, and they're not in this draft future zoning map.
So are you advocating for
One of
adding a
these-
new district for parks? Is that what you're saying?
It's already there. It's part of the comp plan vision.
And if you're not advocating, you just said no, then it
No,
should
no,
be
no,
part
no.
of this.
What I'm saying
Be
is,
clear,
this is-
I understand.
all right.
I'm listening.
We had in the comp plan an opportunity to identify the open space and parks,
Mhm.
but I'm not seeing that particular color code or land use within the draft future zoning.
Land use is different than zoning.
Go down.
So I think, right, the zoning code could eventually say parks, green space are acceptable use of an R1 district.
There you
Which keeps everything compliant without the need for the
The
creation of a
concept I think
separate
you need to
zone.
understand. I
That
think the
these are
concept
not
you need to
discussed.
understand
No,
is.
no, yeah.
These are districts, Maryland. I think the concept you need to understand is we're looking at the common denominator here are districts, not land use. So if you want to view land, it is within a different color is a complete different district, which needs to be represented in the draft document.
It's a completely different fact.
That's it.
Yeah.
Forward.
Yeah, this is the proposed.
The ZAC has actually done, just so everybody knows, we've not cut out little boundaries. The ZAC has not done
Well,
that.
what I do think, Marilyn, what he's done here, and if Matt, if you like scroll between this and the future land use
to
vision,
overlay it.
you can see
Yeah.
he's tried to identify the districts based on this. So there's the transition zones, there's the highway commercial zone, and then there's the different residential districts that were identified on the land use vision.
And there's been a little tweaking there.
No,
And it's not identical.
categorical. This is not the same as a zoning map, however, it provides a foundation for a future zoning map. What more do you want?
So remember, we've
We're
lost.
doing a future zoning map now.
Which is right here.
Well, the
Yeah, he does have a
reality
few
is, as I understood this, is
He's got a few
this is a big. Okay, and the folks are gonna come in and look at all, we're gonna be wandering around explaining it. to them.
Correct.
They don't understand the issue.
Yeah, I think we want their feedback on this exactly, right? Like,
On all of them.
I
yeah,
think our job here is if we need to make any adjustments and tweaks to this before the public sees it, that's our role. Not to make it end all be all final, this is it, like. It doesn't, now Chris attempted to do a good job of taking that, what was in the comprehensive plan. And making it reality. Now, it's up to us to kind of tweak the boundaries. If we see something overtly wrong or incorrect, we can address that.
I mean, to me, my question to this is, what are you trying to get at? So you've got coding of neighborhoods. And you want people to use a post-it note to tell thoughts you have on. This particular one, I just don't see what benefit we're getting out of. What decisions are going to be made based on public feedback to where the.
First thing, when the public look at this, they're gonna be confused, right? Because they're gonna say, what are all those R's? You know,
Yeah,
what's the difference?
exactly. I don't see anything
That was
useful.
my first question.
This is not the case for all the boards, but this particular one, I I don't know what we're gonna get out of it.
Somewhere,
Well-
his message for this one was that he was suggesting eliminating R1, R2, R3, and all of the rest of that. And redefining the districts as neighborhoods. That's what this is.
So did that come out of the comprehensive plan?
I have no idea where it came from. It's a suggestion he's making for us and the public to consider, as opposed to having the distinctions of R1, R2, etc.
Yeah, the form-based code is all about
Do I
neighborhoods.
think that
So,
that's,
yeah.
do I think this is a particularly
No.
grand idea? I don't know. I haven't thought about it long enough, but I certainly can see that's what he's doing.
That makes a lot more sense the way that you described it, but I think it needs more of that. I feel like this in itself doesn't.
Well, that may very
doesn't-
well
that's-
be, but again, unless I'm losing my mind, which is quite possible. All right. I picture a whole bunch of these boards all around the room with us mingling and talking to people and explaining to them what this is. Or having an overview of each board and what this represents and let the people then react to it. I don't see why we have to rewrite all of this at this point. We either like them or we don't.
Yeah, I
Isn't
mean,
that the purpose of this, Matt, was to review these boards and decide, is this enough substance to present them in a 10th public meeting?
yeah, Rory, I don't disagree with you at all. I think this is based on comp plan. It reflects the future land use vision that was outlined in the comp plan. And to me, the goal is you're showing these people, these boards are next to each other, right? So you're showing them, here's the existing zoning. Here's what the comp plan said the future land use vision is. Here's what we propose as so based on plan, we know are unique neighborhoods and they have unique needs, they have different lot sizes, they have different requirements in order to stay compliant within zoning. And these additional ideas like the highway business, do people like that idea?
Right.
People like the idea of a downtown transition zone that's not necessarily a central business district, but affords people opportunities to have home businesses and things like that. So, I think to your point, Rory, it's critical that we're there having these conversations with people. This is what we're looking at here.
If I had one question about this map, thing that it doesn't deal with is the south end of town, which is essentially the transition zone. All right, because Tremble Avenue, you have a cemetery, Stewart's, and our auto parts, and all kinds of other issues that are theoretically not in our village.
Right, students is also.
Okay, but that area is all showing as our residential.
Yeah, south end,
South
yeah.
end. Okay. As we talk with the general public, I'd be very curious as to what their thoughts are about that area.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly a question to ask them, right?
Yes,
And that's the whole purpose of this.
I think that's where we come into play to help
Exactly.
facilitate that input.
exactly.
Like everyone we walk around.
We hear,
Because on that road, there's a full-blown nursing home. All right, it's not zoned for it, it's not legal, but it's there. Okay, along with the senior citizens housing, which is also in that section. I think that needs some manipulation and chatting about.
Well, that's exactly what the comp plan said we should be looking at for that site, compact residential. Compact resident. If the
I'm not
light
talking-
yellow,
I'm not
if
talking
the
about
light
internal.
yellow, if the light yellow color represents that.
No, I'm referencing
I'm
Doubleday
okay.
Woods and that large ranch home that sort of conveniently get converted into an old age home.
Mm.
Okay, on the right kind of north.
So I totally get what the discussion is now, and I didn't get it before that, but I get it now. And I think that just needs to be, we don't have to debate what the specifics are.
Exactly.
But I think we need a question on this that says, do you agree that these are the distinctive neighborhoods of the village, right?
Yeah.
And that's what the purpose is. I would also say, I don't think I'm colorblind, but I'm like slightly.
Yeah, there's a lot of tans in there. There's lots of tans and yellows.
That is.
To agree that these are the distinctive.
It is
Yes.
never zoned. Just simply.
But let's,
doesn't have the status.
I think that's a state.
Yeah.
It is.
but let's.
Maybe also,
let's talk
do you
about that.
think there's anything
there's-
that's not
so the-
distinct here that should be distinct?
I'm not opposed to that, but we can't really say in all fairness that the south end of the village is single family, because it's not. And as a ZAC, have we had a discussion about, the parts of the village and what we need to see in the future?
Public input to give us the opportunity to discuss.
We shouldn't be afraid to have a discussion. And there's many residences in the South End that are more than just R1. They're, people that are renting out apartments. There are people that have 8 bedrooms and 8 bathrooms, and they've got, they're doing Airbnb, whether they have the right to do it or not, but it's an R1. It's like,
What about, where's the adult zone?
it's for sale. It's down on Washington Street.
Where's it shown right there?
Yeah, it's not
And
on
it's
there.
that-
Oh,
It's
aha.
not.
It's gotta be.
That should be on there.
It's talked about.
See,
It's on a previous map, it's not on the, it's not shown on this.
Yes, but it's,
Because it's in the downtown transition, right? It just shows as green, just like the rest of
Yeah.
them.
my comment about that section
Um,
of the drawing, because we
alright.
were told this is process
But-
and it was intent. And if you read that, adult business and anywhere now
But
in the proposed new code, and I have a problem with that. And we haven't even discussed that.
well, aside from the subject matter stuff, that brings up the other point of, I think all of these need street names. For showing these to the public who are not this map with
Well-
street names.
Right.
You need some street names, you need something that's
why is it gonna have a big clutter?
Right here, this guy? Okay. All right, so I've heard feedback for boards 2 and 3 to add the historic district lines
Yes.
for both current and proposed. For board 3, add the adult zone or adult district. Question, do you agree, question to public, do you agree that these district boundaries are relative to the comprehensive plan land use map? And then another question would be to add any other districts that do not exist that should be. And then more contrasting colors for board 3.
Sorry, more street names.
More street names.
On the proposed, why would we put the historic district if the boundaries may change? We don't know what they are, so how can we, I don't think that it should. be
That's
on the
fine.
proposed.
It's a good-
We have it on the current map, we're showing where it is. Nobody's even discussed where it should be or how it could be expanded or minimized, I don't. If it's not changing, then I don't believe it should be on the proposed. We need, especially, we need it a little clean, because it is a mess.
Yeah.
I don't see it
And
on the, and I don't see it on the vision either.
that highlights a question for me also, Anna. Should we just have a very direct question included here of, what constitutes the historic district to you?
How about what is historic?
That's
Let's
right
let's
question.
table
It's the only question.
let's table all this.
It is absolutely the only question.
Is it?
You can't define a district or an area if you can't define specifically what we mean by historic.
Usually
And
it's
we
50
don't,
years
and we
plus.
can't.
Well, then that's most of the
Yeah,
village,
but
that's my
that's-
house.
That's right, it's mine too.
Damn
What
right,
is
you're
it?
gonna come
What's-
down.
so-
Yeah,
But that's-
All right, so back to the,
Historic
so
is
so
50
back
years
to
plus.
the topic.
I thought our
Okay.
purpose was to talk about others.
Back to the topic at hand. So, good feedback on this slide. Oop, did I just minimize? Oh, I guess not.
Well, so then the question is the adult district.
Yeah.
We'll
And
be-
this
we'll be
question.
added to it.
have
We
that
should put that on
captured.
high
Well, it can go anywhere.
Yeah, that'll be added. That'll be
It
added.
can Go anywhere.
All right, so
Just
4,
fantastic.
slide 4. What is slide 4?
Where it is fine.
It does says that we have to have a designated. area.
We do.
Okay, with
Downtown. 2 boards for
I'm not
downtown.
language that the consultant was forced to put into that draft. Because it says it could go anywhere.
Forced.
Yeah,
He did his due diligence. He had to speak to key players, including us. There's nothing forced. He did through our gap analysis. He took our consideration.
we asked pertinent questions. Do we have to have an adult district? We
Answer.
do.
Answer is
And
yes.
State laws,
he took-
yes.
He took months to answer the question.
State laws,
He
yes.
said, yes, we have to have, but a community can decide to designate an area.
I don't agree that that's what the draft language says. I don't think it says that it could be anywhere. But I also don't think that's the discussion we were having right now.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So slide 4. What is would somebody like to read off what Chris his intentions and purpose and
Downtown. This will highlight the downtown area, provide and example the zone. I originally had planned on visual preference survey. Here I'm providing an alternative approach where we already assume we know the community wants to retain the existing character of the downtown. So we provide examples of the regulations that will ensure future development fits within this context. So he's seeking to tease out the characteristics of the existing buildings, ask for feedback to ensure that these are what people want in future development, ask about uses, as this was in the comp plan to consider, and then once agreed on the concept, translated in regulations themselves.
Yeah, the only thing I think he has not addressed with the illustration is signage. And the fact that when we're talking about a downtown district, we're also talking about residential use. And why is that important? It comes into play as we move forward with different unconventional types of businesses that will seek to be downtown. Okay, I'm just going to say it, a hookah lounge, a dispensary. And if those are allowed in our downtown, we have residential use above those businesses. That's of concern.
I don't think we're talking use. We're talking about aesthetics.
Aesthetics, right?
Well, that's
He also
fine.
said uses, talk about uses as this was in the comp plan.
Remember, under current zoning, this with apartments above those businesses, as we've discussed, it's not allowed.
Yeah, different topic.
No, same topic.
That-
A nuance here.
That's not what I'm being asked here for the public.
In connection with, talking. So.
That sounds like it's a topic we can table when we talk about downtown business district. I'll add that. Residential uses in downtown business district. Oh, that's topic number 3 to talk about later. It's a good one. So this slide here, Chris, Jared, would you mind reading off what feedback he's asking for?
Do you agree with this approach? Are there characteristics of downtown buildings missing that you want considered? I also include discussion of a way to allow for taller buildings beyond 3 stories without impacting the character of downtown. Allowing larger buildings can be important for financial feasibility. This asks the question whether the community supports this approach.
Well,
I think that's a separate.
where did that come from?
That's on the 4th, right? Where he has the setback.
Right here.
Yeah, that upper fourth, that back. I mean, that's typical Saratoga Springs, stuff.
Yeah, I think that's another topic we need to talk about in terms of height. I know that where there's mixed concerns on that. And the last time I heard that conversation was there needs to be somewhere in the village for that to occur, not necessarily on Front Street, but in order to make certain development feasible, it needs to occur somewhere. So I think that's a topic we can talk about.
Did we discuss that? It's the comprehensive plan. I seem to recall we did discuss it.
I don't know. It is a topic we need to discuss.
Right.
Period. Back to this topic here. The question to the public, is this something we want to present to the public? And is this something that the questions down below, we're asking the public to have their input on, are they the right ones? Do we need any additional ones? Are they the wrong ones?
This whole section needs to be refined. I just think it needs to be clarified, an easy question to ask someone, about their values, what they're perceiving here. And if this is pleasing, and I don't know, Jared, if we had anything in the visual preference survey that we could pull out from the comp plan, because we've done stuff like this before.
We looked into that. We have, of course, all of the information in the comp plan about the results of the surveys. I couldn't find the actual visual preference survey itself anywhere. I reached out to Karen. She doesn't have it. Which means, Behan has it, but I don't think that's a position we can really.
I just remember the conversation, and we had it very early on, a discussion with Monique Cohen about how she just wished that more of downtown had a sense of architectural character, color scheme. She mentioned signage. those were all things we all talked about, just like at one meeting. So, you know, it's unfortunate Behan hasn't captured that, but the whole concept of character, you know, I think is reflected there, and the architectural,
So there might be other, you know, other things we can add into this board then, right? Your point, like color. So if we had allowed painted brick, would that be acceptable to, you know, would residents want to see painted brick? Would residents want to see, you know, I think that's what Chris is asking for here, right? Like, what do you like about the downtown right now? So, you know, I think many of us like the facades, we like the brick, we like, you know, the wide sidewalks, we like the large windows, those architectural features that he's calling out here. If we wanted to add other pieces in there, like,
how about the lighting? And if we could actually, you know, I think we're missing the boat here, not putting Wiswall in the picture there.
We're missing the boat in the fact that this is one very limited section of downtown. Facade wise, go down a block, okay, past Village Hall, and you have a completely different scenario.
Right.
And to me, if we're going to talk about downtown and facades, we should show all the variances and ask what people think. I think most of them are all those buildings past, okay, and Mike will attest to this, past Village Hall have contiguous attics. All right, if they were to, God forbid, have some type of a problem with a fire, they'd all be gone. And our current zoning doesn't allow us to build any of them.
Exactly.
Okay, so if you're going to talk about what do we want it to look like, then give people what it is now and say, do we like this or we don't like it? Because
Brick buildings like this are being more.
right, or do we want to, or yeah, or do we want to just see a whole set of essentially row houses that are all interconnected with no firewalls and no firewalls in the attics?
Yeah, that's a totally different issue, but I think.
But it's not a different issue.
No, it's a more important issue.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And I think we need to take a step back from, I think this board in particularly emphasizes to me, we have very limited real estate in terms of what's going to be put up,
Right.
how much attention span we have from people, and how much of the response that we're going to get from the public on this board is actually going to go into
I agree.
drafting the code. And to me, I don't think we're going to get anything other than, oh, that looks nice, or oh, I don't like that. And that's not going to tell us anything. We need to drill down to what questions we really need to answer with the public forum.
Well, and a good question would be if we are moving down past Village Hall, which is 4 stories high. Let's use the old bar, okay, Crow's Bar. All right. That building, okay, has been looked at by a lot of people, including myself as a developer. And it is financially impossible to develop it unless it's 4 stories high. All right. It could be made to look beautiful. All right. It could be brick faced, it could have setbacks, it could have a penthouse at the top for all of that. But without any definition from the folks of whether or not that would be acceptable, is that something they want to see to more solidify that section of town with more substantial buildings is a really interesting question in my opinion.
Well, I think we can develop those questions so we can get more out of that particular board. And if it means we look at another snapshot of another Front Street structure to ask about that, or compare or contrast, I mean, that's something we can do in the next.
For the front street, you have 4 different, really 3 different designs.
Yeah.
Going up and down that street, just in 300 yards.
What would have to be 4 stories? What are those 4 stories?
Margaret, because financially, all right, in order to construct in this day and age, you have to go up in order to be able to get a return on investment.
Okay,
That's
but
simply
like,
simple.
what would it be? What would be on those 4
Let's assume
stories?
for the sake of discussion, that it was storefront first floor, let's assume the basement, which is on the Washington Street extension side,
Right.
might be a bar or a bistro. Okay, and then 2 floors of apartments are that would be higher end for people who want with an elevator, the people who want to live downtown. All right, but to do that, okay, the cost per square foot is prohibitive.
But I'm just asking, what would be 4 stories, then is it now not residential? It's not downtown, it's mixed use.
Well, again, and I'm not, that's not, all
That was
I'm
my
after
point
is,
before.
I don't think this is representative of downtown in the total context. And if we're gonna have people reacting to facades and what do they like and what don't they like, we should show those facades.
And I think this is where we need to make a distinction between what discussion we want to have with this and what discussion we want to have either within the ZAC or in by setting up maybe other forums where we talk to people who have particular information. What you just described, Rory, is information that the general public is not going to have.
No, I
And
agree.
they're not going to look at this and say, well, I don't think that that's going to get me a financial, get a developer a financial return. They're not going to be giving feedback or based on that. What we need to be asking is the right questions to get the right feedback from general members of the public, because those are the people that are being invited to this.
So what I heard,
And we also need to, at the same time, be saying what feedback that they're giving us is actually useful for developing the code. We have all the information on facades. That was all done in the comprehensive plan. I know that I went to a meeting where those questions were asked.
Reference stuff.
That I don't think is a good use of time for this meeting. We need to go back and say, what questions does Chris really need to answer in terms of public feedback for drafting the code? And I think there may be a few different ways that we can think about that, a few different directions that may come from. One of them is where there are things that we clearly feel there is a lot of public interest and a lot of public disagreement or agreement, where we really need feedback. So for instance, Marilyn, you're talking about your views on the adult district. Do we need to get feedback on that? I think that that's actually a really bad example, because it's obviously a lightning rod for we are going to get really negative stuff that's in contradiction to what we legally need to do. But the idea is we need to say, where do we need to make sure that we're getting public feedback that is going to actually inform what Chris is going to do, rather than later go back and say, well, that's not technically feasible, or that's not in line with what the legal guidelines are, or that's not in line with what the technical experts are going to say. One of those areas might be, I think there are a few lines where we know that within the committee, we're going to have some clear disagreements, and maybe it will be helpful to get public feedback on those things, and that will help us to talk about them more openly and reasonably by saying, okay, I disagree with this, but it seems like the public is overwhelmingly in favor of that. I'm sure there are other places we can go, but I feel like some of the boards we're getting here are not going to result in anything that we're actually going to use.
Like this
so
board.
so what I'm
Yeah.
hearing is this board, as well as potentially this board with the step back, these will not be useful for this time around.
I think that one it's not appropriate at this point in time.
Do
The
we,
other one I think is appropriate, and maybe we could do it with a contrast in another part of downtown, as a compare and contrast. Would you rather see this? Would you rather see that? And then clarify the questions. And related to what you were just talking about, that last board that Chris prepared for us are all the hot button issues. And I think it should be on there. I think it's about whether it should be pervasive through the community or in a designated area is one topic. And that ADU topic is also on that board. And I think there's another one if I look at my notes.
Yeah.
I think those types of things
You hit it on the head. I think the ADUs is the perfect example of where
Yeah.
we want to know what people actually think.
Yeah, as long as we have a good definition and can explain that, either visually or a compact definition of an ADU. Say, hey, where do you think this should be in the community? What do you think? Do you think it's appropriate for your neighborhood or not? And just kind of ask in that standpoint.
most people won't know what an ADU is, so
Yeah,
that's what we'll have to explain.
but he did a nice board, I
Yes, he
think,
did, yeah.
as long as we all agree with that.
So what do we want to do with this board?
Yeah, I'm also not opposed to this board. I hear you, Cameron, that, we did a lot of this work in the comp plan. And I don't think it's complete. I think Rory and Marilyn, you both made this point, we could include maybe some other imagery. And I would say, though, we don't necessarily even need to contrast it against each other. Part of the value of downtown is that we have this part of Front Street, and then we have the inn right next to it, this beautiful old historic building. And then, we have the strip of Milton Avenue that's part of downtown. And they're not all exactly the same. And I don't think we want downtown to look exactly the same.
Yeah.
But we want to have some control over if, Monaco's gets redeveloped, what is it going to look like?
And I
And
think that's where those other building drawings that he had comes into play. Because you need to. This stuff's getting old. A lot of these buildings, and I've worked on a lot of them, are not gonna last another 50 years.
Mhm.
People can't afford to fix them. They'll have to be taken down, or they're gonna fall down, or they're gonna, Monaco's being one of them. Eventually that's gonna have to go one way or the other.
Mhm.
And it's a major overhaul to fix what's there. So we have to think about okay, if this is gonna be another building, what can it look like?
right, yeah.
You know,
And does it have to look like this, or could it look like some of these other
maybe
options?
something that had people say, okay, that wouldn't be bad, or no, that's terrible. We kind of have to know that.
Yeah.
What's the opinions?
Do you guys really think that the average person that's gonna drive down here from Glen Street is gonna have any opinion on this?
Oh, yes, they've
Oh, I
already
do.
told us. They've already told us.
And we heard a lot of opinions at the comp plan meetings.
I think most people are just gonna like, oh yeah, I really like that.
Honestly, that's exactly how I feel, and that's why I would say. Totally get if people think there's useful stuff to get out of this. I would just ask that we ask more specific questions to make sure that we actually get information rather than it being a waste of space and just being, yeah, that looks good.
We have about short-term rentals, that's another one.
That's so that board.
Airbnbs and same thing, that is right now a hot topic.
So that's also a state law waiting to be signed by the government. There was a bill passed
Yeah.
about regulating them, and I have the.
But still, I'd like to find out if
Right.
people in our village could feel about.
Right, and it's a state law.
That should be somewhere on one of these boards.
Yeah. And it's gonna be,
Could we tease out specific questions about downtown? Like,
Yeah.
does downtown need to be constructed of brick? Does downtown need, the large transparent windows, the regular rhythm of windows?
And
Are-
I don't know that you need to be that specific, but at least say, do you prefer that everything look uniform, or would you like more variety, or something like that? It
That's a
doesn't have to
question.
be. Do you prefer this material?
Right.
Yeah.
But ask questions that are gonna get more than a yes or no answer.
Do we have any questions we'd like to?
Let's work on it
Right.
for a week, because we're
Could I
running
make a
out of time
suggestion?
here.
Chris sends out a memo on September 13th of 2024. As per Matt's recommendation, I put together draft material, one being blah. The general process for October 10th should be, I have descriptions of the boards, I'd like to know, and then he asks a whole bunch of questions. I think that this is what we should be feeding back for the third meeting, is what is our reaction to those questions? Because he asked them all that we're talking about. Okay, for names, rather than traditional zoning names are one we're proposing background neighborhoods and character. But this is fluid, open to feedback. There's no right answer. He's hit on all of this stuff. It's not on the boards, okay, but it is in his letter. And I think that if we read through that, I think commenting on that and answering those questions and feedback, do we agree with the approaches and how it's done? Et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to read it because you guys can read it, but I think it's extremely important. This is our paid consultant giving us an outline of what he thinks we should do. If we have questions and concerns, that's the place to address it, so that when we have the next meeting, we can have those questions ready for him or answers and move forward.
And yeah, I agree, Rory. I think that's what we're trying to do, honestly.
That's what-
We're not using his framework and we're all
Well,
over the.
Trying-
that's what we've been reading along with.
I'm saying that all it is.
If we could go to the next board, just so we can say we've got through most of these. The highway business.
All right, before we go there, so what I'm hearing is that this board 4, we need additional snapshots, perspectives, so we can opine on. Need additional questions to pose to the public, additional specific questions. That said, who's going to come up with these additional specific questions?
I will work with anybody here on the board to refine that and possibly come up with another photograph. We could use the row house and possibly ask Chris to project a future vision of what that might look like. You know, we, on that same street, we have clapboard, we have stone, we have brick. We've got diversity in the construction of that whole place. And they're not of all the same age. So, you know, we can make that happen.
The Milton Avenue is the same way.
Yeah.
Front Street, Milton
Right.
Avenue.
So I'd be
Yeah.
willing to help with that. And if anybody
Thank you,
else
Marilyn.
wants
Who
to.
else
do it,
wants to help with Marilyn? Come up with some of these questions and specifics.
I will.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Margaret.
Margaret.
I would like to set a deadline of 9:30 for this. The reason for that is we need to give Chris some time. What I would like to do is I want Chris to come back on the 3rd, our next meeting, with some of these revisions. So if we can get these done by the 30th, that'll give him 4 working days, 4 business days to get his people to get these boards together, whatever he needs to do.
Yeah, I think next week should be enough time to get some questions refined and a possible strategy for another vision. I'm thinking that future vision of what the place looks like, you know, if it were to burn down, is a great way to engage the public,
I'd say so.
you know.
Yeah, I say so, because that's essentially what we're asking. Future, like, what would it be? Like, this is acceptable now, but what else could be acceptable?
Right, kind of fits something.
Yeah, yeah. To think with an eye to the future, I like that.
And the other thing with that, like Monica was as an example of the 4 stories, is parking. Like, if we're having,
Monaco's, just so you know, Monaco's was 4 stories.
yeah, but
The second, third floor burned off.
in the parking
Fourth
stops.
being-
But if we're
Right.
thinking that there could be apartments, there's that crap little parking lot that totally needs to be repaved and lined. What's that, 6 spots?
That's a bank.
But that's,
It's not.
it's not the.
It's one next to it.
It's that,
Yeah.
right, so there is no parking.
Oh, there is
And
no
that
parking.
and that compounds the issue downtown. Because there's a,
There's a property out back.
whole nother
There's another-
yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's-
The property goes all the way to Washington Street in the back.
Oh, okay, because I was just thinking, okay, I envision this, and then I'm like, well, where is anyone gonna?
Fascinating. There was an argument study done quite some time ago. Where it was determined we have more parking than Saratoga. All right, but the problem is we don't have any place to walk. It's as simple as that, okay? And so if you find a park in Ballston spot, that means you just don't want to walk.
Yep, there's a lot of truth to that.
Oh, yeah, I don't disagree.
I don't think Saratoga Street pros and cons.
We've agreed to this.
since that study came out, the county has put up signs in the parking lots.
all
Say you cannot park here during the week. So things change and they.
After 5, you can, right?
Yeah, park there during the workday week.
Well,
That's because it's the park. His space is there all along shipping bike to work anyway.
All right, so this slide right here, was it slide 5? Should we just rid of this?
Yes.
And revisit
Yes.
and take this and expand upon?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So that's board 5. Okay. Next one.
Highway commercial.
You know what? Yeah, this is a good one. I bet you not many people pay attention to this. Not many people may not even know that certain areas are actually within the village.
Mm.
This is an interesting one.
Only part of that, though, is in the village. Is that not correct?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
So it's a conundrum. Some of these things we can change, others we cannot. And my only comment on this, the comp plan tells us all we need to know on how to address this because the public told us they don't like this. This was like not what they wanted. Yet the draft that Chris gave us has no recourse in there for changing that situation.
what do you mean?
We said landscaping, more preferred, no, it wasn't in there. I'm saying, yeah, that's an illustration. I'm saying the first draft he gave us
Of what?
of the proposed code has no commentary, no guidance, no standards or specifications on how to achieve the picture on the right.
yeah, and
I think
I don't
this is
think
to
we
report-
expect that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. No,
Not
it's
yet.
not part of the, I don't think that was part of
But
the.
what we're
first
gonna
draft.
get out of this is people are gonna say, yeah, I think there should be green space. I think there should be landscaping. I think there should be this, that, and the other thing. I mean, this
So
is
it's
gonna
another
be,
question of
it's
what's the
another
question we
guess.
want to ask and making
Exactly.
sure we ask the right question
Yeah.
here rather than.
Where the hell's that Stewart's building?
That's just an image
This is
that was
just a
part of the
this is
visual
just a-
reference.
It's like a computer.
It's trying to
screen.
illustrate,
Okay,
it's trying to
good.
illustrate this stuff down
Yeah.
here of like all the specifics.
It's part of what we had in the comp plan, and this one received
Can-
high marks.
Can somebody read off what Chris said about the specific slide, the
Yeah,
highway?
it's that, as noted in comp plan, the community does not have a positive view of this existing corridor. Large commercial buildings, lots of pavement, no character. This station will build off comp plan top rated visual preference image, which is that Stewart's building.
Yep.
So the purpose inform the zoning for this district with a focus on how we can infill the front edge of properties to be more in line with the desired vision.
Infill.
And then feedback, since a visual preference survey was done, this builds off that, and similar to the downtown board, teases out the elements. We could do a more traditional visual preference survey in its place, which I don't think we need to go back to that traditional idea. I like this idea of, you know, this is another option besides using green space to kind of create the separation from a large building. If you had a building that had a upper facade potentially along, you know, the strip of 50 there, it could look and feel a bit more like the village that you're coming into than, you know, job lots set back.
Or for that matter, Aldi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
This seems like a very specific question for one specific location for what we're trying to do with this though, or at least that example, and how many examples where that could be done are there?
Well,
The Ricketts would be,
Yeah, what you've got is the village sign, for our job lots is actually in the wrong place, okay?
I wondered about
It's the
I did too.
village ends just past what was the pizza. Hut,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, right, so that theoretically, Ted's will give us a much better design than Pizza Hut, and it will look somewhat similar, maybe not to that, at least it'll have some character, if the planning board has anything to say about that. As you move down, you've got a swamp, okay, across the street, where they wanted to put an auto zone, right? We killed that because the planning board said, no way in hell you can drain that properly and not flood all of Saratoga Avenue.
Yeah.
Aldi's Aldi, it's there, there's not much you can do about it. As other buildings perhaps want to be developed, or Aldi decides to sell off a piece of their parking lot, or some of those other things, I think we could have design criteria that we think are kind of important to sort of soften that area up coming in. And then Ricketts is a conundrum of many proportions, because it's a banana shaped lot, but that's not the real problem. And I don't think this addresses it, but we should all understand it. If you really look at Ricketts, the back wall of Ricketts was a retaining wall holding up all of the property behind it. Anyone who buys that property is going to have to build a massive retaining wall just to get started. The cost of that is prohibitive. And then what, you know, I'm pretty creative. I can't think of much of anything other than a very simple strip mall that could go there, because there's not enough room to build much of anything
They have parking.
and have park.
I thought it would be a perfect place to have a parking lot with EVs and some green space and people could park there and CDTA could take them in certain hours or not. And there could be a covering, it could be a bus stop, and it would be pleasant to come into the village to something nice.
Frankly, Margaret, if somebody's willing to pay to do that
I'm just
for
saying, that's
a
good.
non-revenue
Yeah.
producing.
Right, and we had
Good
talked
luck.
about that because there's not a lot of those types of small, playground or green space areas in that part of the village.
Right.
All right, so let's get back to this. Let's get back to this board. It sounds like
Can I say this is a good example of where I think it's very easy to get stuck on one location. And what we want this board to talk about is places that are similar to this. So the
well, it did
Ocean
that downtown
State.
business district. Same thing is
Yeah.
happening here for this district.
Yeah.
It's essentially what the approach he's taking is.
Well, but it's not even just this district, right? Or this part. So it's the same for the south end, right? We're talking about
Is there
areas that are
Well, the highway
similar
district.
with this character in this
That's what this is
character.
specifically talking about. I think we need to represent more areas than just this and
Yeah.
ask those right.
Yeah,
specific
that's
questions.
what that's what I was.
But yeah,
saying.
we're like I think he's taking snapshots of the districts. Like last one was the business district. We didn't like that. We want to take different perspectives, different questions. Now it's highway. We need to take different perspective, different questions to that as well. I think that's how he's looking at this objectively. So what I'm hearing is we need to do the same thing for this one as well. Different pictures. What are the right questions? I don't even know these. Let's go over the questions he has here now. What did Jared? What did Chris say about feedback? What was he looking specifically for this?
To tease out the elements of design here,
Okay.
like the downtown. So
Does these elements capture should be part of zoning in this district? Are the characteristics missing from this list? What are the characters? These requirements would likely apply only to buildings along the edge of the property. So his concept is for highway, he's looking for design elements that are, I don't know what you call this concept, but the upper right photo would be the buildings that bring that closeness feel into it, not necessarily the existing buildings out back. So
Well,
something like this, like a photo of Ricketts
All,
would be good.
what I think he's saying is essentially Malta, which I think is not right.
Yeah,
No,
Well, pulling those buildings close to the street, which is exactly what Malta did, okay?
Like what's front.
Is of these architects. When in fact, I think it's exactly the opposite of anything we would want to look at.
It makes no sense.
Town also just changed it again in their master plan for they just redid their zoning. They changed it and now they want the buildings off the street again.
There you go.
the
I mean-
desired characteristic here is green space, texture, design, interest, trees, shrubs, natural. We talked about it in the comprehensive plan. You drive down East High Street, it's a shaded street. We have trees intact, the same on Church Ave. You go to the north end of town, you're seeing more asphalt, more pavement, and you're gonna lose more trees when that development just over the line from the village gets done, the mixed use residential. If something happens, with the property opposite Ricketts, that entire wooded lot is gonna come down. So shouldn't there be a requirement to soften development that's going to it's definitely gonna happen in that corridor by requiring landscaping that's going to make that area more attractive. It's the northern entryway to the village. Welcome to the Village of Friends, and it's bare bones, asphalt, glare.
Just
It's-
ugly.
But I think we
is
also have to
kind of
consider
ugly.
development too. If there's I think the same thing, same approach we took for downtown business district should be applied here. If something burned down, what should be come back in its place? I think that's really what the question is. Is it just landscape instead, no buildings? Or do we want to influence what future use looks like? I think that's the question.
Yeah, it does translate to all zoning land uses, especially when
But we're talking specifically about this one.
development.
So what do we want to have for this board right here?
And this goes to me back again to the question of what useful information that is actually going to go into the code and we can get out of this. I think we all have strong opinions on this, and I think we're all pretty close on what we think this should be, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about what our opinions on what this should be are. We're asking what questions do we want the public to answer about this? And
Chris is putting forth
Sounds like
a top-rated building.
Make those questions.
Well, would you like this to look greener and softer? I have a hard time. I can think about it. I'm not sure that I know what the right questions that aren't leading.
I think we also
are
just
actually useful and
The village will
designing
have
something wrong.
developers to create landscaped buffer zones around development.
Easy.
Well, but again, I think that that's a question we're asking, right?
Let's.
We're
But
asking
again,
this
no one's
question
gonna
down
say
there.
no to that.
That's okay.
But it's not a good use of our time in the.
I don't disagree on that one in particular. This, whether we like that or not, I think that's a question for the public. Do they see a value in having, say, job lots protected from street view by some other building that's developed there?
Or do you see any other realistic alternative?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, there are most assuredly realistic alternatives, right, that exist all over the country. The South does it all the time. You have a big box store, you got all kinds of sites in front of it that take the sting out of it.
Malta did that.
If you want-
Price Chopper and stuff on the corner.
I'll bring in
Yeah, like
the
something-
AutoZone application and elevations for your little green space, okay, across from Ricketts.
Yeah,
So you can see what they were proposing would be our entryway. All right. And when you look at it, you're gonna go, you gotta be kidding me. All right, would have been lovely, bright orange and yellow and brightly lit. And about the most hideous looking building I've ever seen.
but why would we need an auto zone on
It
either end of
doesn't
the
matter why we would
village?
need it. They wanted to fly it, okay,
Right.
they came to us to get permission to build it. And the planning board killed it. Okay, because it didn't work, it didn't fit, the design wasn't right. They couldn't deliver what we wanted from them, which was a much softer looking building. Corporate says we can't do that, we have to be bright orange and red. And then.
Keep it in the town of Ballston.
Yeah,
there you go.
No, but let me finish, because it's important that everybody in this around here just understands what that particular section of the village is. Underneath Route 50, running from Dunkin' Donuts into that property, is a 2.5 foot wide culvert that comes off of the storm drain on Route 50. When it rains, all the water from Route 50 goes into this property. And then it drains into one collection basin at the end of Saratoga Avenue,
Right.
past Aldi. They actually wanted us to believe that they could pave the entire area, which is all trees, Maryland, and put a 7,000 square foot building there, and all the water that was going to shed off of it would be held on site. Okay, and they didn't have any. They had engineering. They had an engineered drainage system that it looked like a spider web. And the two engineers that sit on the planning board looked at it and said, I don't think so. It's not gonna work.
All right, let's get back to this board.
Yep.
I say we could, after this one, we go to which topics we want to expand on. It looks like short-term rentals is down here. We can put ADUs is down here.
There you go, short-term rentals, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's here, but let's focus on getting through this board first. We're almost there. I think we're almost there. We can do this. Where's this creeping on me? Do we want to keep this, number one? And if we do, we need to change do we want different photos, different perspectives of a highway district? I think we also, what I hear, we also need collectively to come up with additional questions we want to be very poignant with. If we want to tease out from the public exactly what we want. Maybe we don't know all they are, but if we can all get our questions, does that make sense? Because I think we get collectively all our questions back to Chris. Chris can say, I know what is missing, or I know where they're going. And then at least Chris can come back on the third and propose something else. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Okay, so if you want to send me the questions or send Marilyn questions, just a central location, don't care where. Actually, send Marilyn questions. Since you're already collecting them, if everybody has questions, just throw them on the same list, but we can get that list to Chris. One is for the business district and one is for the highway, highway commercial district. I'm sorry, the highway business district. With the expectation of Chris to take a look at these things and come back on the third with more options. We can.
Yeah, and send them to me by email. please.
Oh,
Because obviously, if
course.
my comments are not getting posted to the Google Doc, there's a problem here.
When
And
do you want to buy marijuana?
30th.
the 30th. If
send
everybody
them
can,
to me by next week. I mean,
yeah.
I think, well, it's fresh in our mind.
Yeah. All right. So additional topics. This is another good one here. So we can leave off, what we can do is we can either leave off here and we have other ideas. I presume everybody's reviewed all the boards. What other areas do we want to explicitly call out as separate boards? So right now,
PDD as part of these hot button
Okay.
issues. But I'd like us not to negatively portray any of these. And for me, my comment on the PDD would be the way the draft is written now, it can happen anywhere, anytime throughout the village versus in a directed area, in a specific area. So I think that's just
Or-
one thought.
or specific requirements,
Interested in hearing what everybody
Minimum
else.
sizes, yeah.
things like that. Yeah, there could be constraints around a PD.
I think it's something that it would be really great to get more public input on. I also worry that it's too complex to portray
Yes.
what the
I would
questions are on a.
Because ultimately, it's a mechanism.
But I'd like to see Chris try.
That's a good point. That's another. Okay,
And unfortunately, he's not here today to help us, and I think that's a shame. And we have to have his input as soon as he gets back from whatever trip but I'm really disappointed he's not guiding us through this process and that he's
yeah,
put the
he's
burden on you, Matt.
he's traveling out of country, so he's trying to give us the best he can. However, he did say, I did read somewhere multiple times that he was saying that the public shouldn't really be concerned with PDDs because it's a mechanism that allows proposals to come in front of the public, which the public should be concerned about.
Exactly.
Not necessarily the mechanism to get those proposals in front of people to raise pitchforks or like, so I think that's what Chris's perspective is. So Chris may dissuade us even from even broaching the topic, but if we want to, that's our purview to do so. So I'm happy to ask Chris to take a swing at the pitch.
The other thing that wasn't on this list that should be a discussion, which we had in the comp plan committee, was the fact that home-based businesses, we never really said they should just be in downtown transition. We talked about them throughout the entire village, in appropriate locations and appropriate home-based businesses. And just to the point, if anybody remembers the tour, if you were on the comp plan committee, when we did the tour of Colonial Hills, if you go on Google Maps, there are so many home-based businesses in R1. I'm not denigrating anything. I think it's a great thing, but it just goes to show you, if we don't embrace something like that with at least an opportunity for everybody to do their home-based business in their home, regardless of where they live, as long as it's not going to negatively impact a neighbor.
So what do you want to ask the public on that topic?
Yeah, should home-based businesses be allowed in all residential areas?
So it's a yay or nay
I
question.
would maybe
we're
say
gonna
what
pose.
types of home-based business.
Right, and yeah, we've got to define that, but
Yeah, it's
and we don't have to
maybe
do
some
it.
And then
We
parking.
have to do
What
the
about
list
parking?
right
Yeah.
now,
Certain
but
businesses need parking.
it was never the Zach saying only in downtown transition.
Is that
and
really a
that's what
question
the-
we should pose to the public?
Yes, absolutely.
Because everybody's gonna want to do a business and I don't think anybody's
They're-
concerned with that.
the
business.
whole-
I think a lot of people are concerned about what businesses there are next door to them.
Yeah.
That's true. That's a good point.
And that's where that adult business thing comes in, because the draft right now says anywhere in the village. And oh, by the way, if it's not allowed, then there's these adjustments, these administrative adjustments that could be made. I'm not in favor of that either. So just saying, home-based businesses should be that other topic.
Okay. Done.
Yeah, could we, and it could follow on the downtown transition question, right? That the comp plan envisions allowing some additional commercial activity in these areas. What about in residential areas?
Yeah, in those areas right now, you've got accountants, attorneys, politicians, you've got all sorts of businesses, in those areas right now. So.
Yeah.
Counseling services, humans, service organizations, it's there.
Yeah, there's some rule though, you have to allow certain areas, certain. Customer, I say customer need, but. Lawyers, that kind of stuff can really have their offices anywhere. There's
Yeah, they can
no-
hang their shingle like accountants.
Yeah, there's certain, and there's a term for it, I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Oh, I sneer when I said that.
Yes.
Yeah, what's your beef with accountants?
Accountant, I don't-
Lawyers.
Those guys.
Car guys.
Oh, yeah, what kind of.
All right.
The cottage clusters came up. I don't know who brought that up. It certainly wasn't any of us, but
Yeah.
if you take a look, I had talked to Chris months ago about compact residential. If anybody's familiar with Round Lake, Griffin's Ridge, perfect example of compact residential. Or if you go up to Saratoga, the small homes that are primarily craftsman, Victorian style, and they're all different in the neighborhood. Off Washington Street, there's a cute little development there behind Saratoga Vision. It's on Outlook Avenue and Division Street. Wonderful concept for what the comp plan had talked about for the infirmary. These small compact residential homes, because the concept here was we didn't want the neighborhood to suddenly change into a 6-story high-rise apartment complex. If you drive around that neighborhood where the infirmary was, these would fit right in. The landscaping's there right away, and the parking is there, and it's desirable. And the idea of the village being a residential community, people are going to come here, buy property, and buy homes if they can, ground level homes that they can get into at an affordable price. So.
All right. That does it for that. We can follow up on the rest of boards on the 3rd.
So, sorry, Matt, just on the additional topics then.
Yes.
We're gonna ask Chris to craft something around PDDs, if it's possible.
ADUs.
ADUs are already
ADUs
on there, and we want to include ADUs as a discussion point, right?
It's already a separate, it's in housing.
Yeah, Chris specifically asks, do we want to do it?
Yes.
So I think we do.
Yes.
Then also home-based businesses, are we gonna expand on that question?
I would say so. Which one should be allowed, parking, et cetera, following the downtown transition section on additional topics. All right, so Marilyn, Margaret, you're gonna work on questions and potential pictures for the downtown. All of us, if we have any questions or additional photos for the highway district, get them back to Marilyn. The goal to Chris by the 30th or sooner. And I will follow with Chris to let him know how this meeting went. So we have some feedback for him. We expect some additional tweaks and adjustments to be brought for the 3rd. It sounds like the go, no-go decision is so far as of now, it's still a go,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Now the problem is we have to do something. If we do decide to vote, we have to do something very, cannot wait until the 30th. I'm just letting everybody know
What
that.
are you referring?
30th of what?
Press releases,
Oh, yeah.
outreach, signage.
Let's refer back to the last meeting. Till we start getting them out.
Basically, you need, at the very least,
Start tomorrow.
correct, just to be able to get the press release out. And the other thing, I just want to go on record saying I'm very disappointed that we have not gotten the support from the village. Peter, you gave an idea months ago that the notice for the public engagement workshop should go out with the water bills. At the last meeting, we were told, well, the people that send those bills out don't want to do that. So we have to figure out another way that the village can actually start getting the word out, because it's not happening. And we're not getting the support from the village. Now, we can all put up flyers, but I think something like the village having to spend some money on some sort of a, temporary push in the ground sign in each one of those neighborhoods has got to happen. Otherwise, we're going to be looking at each other on October 10th, because no one's going to know about this
I can ask, I can ask,
strategy. And people are going to do it on cable TV, print media, social media, but that's not the point. We're not getting the cooperation from the village. We need that. We truly need the village to put the word out. And I'm not just saying social media.
so let me follow up on that a little bit. So signs in each neighborhood, I can certainly follow up with the village hall, see if we can do that. Let's refresh last meeting what we talked about in terms of getting the awareness out. That's why I wanted to talk last time, because it takes a bit to get momentum. But if you go too soon, you're gonna it's almost like it gets lost in the noise. So BPA email blast, Darwin is on that.
They're not a problem.
Let me just go down the list here. The next one, I asked Frank about his Facebook page. He said yes a while ago. When the time is more timely to do that. The village webpage, I don't know if that's there, but I can certainly follow up with Jen or Terry on that. Marilyn, you're going to send to Jen a press release to be sent out.
Yeah, and I did get feedback on that, specifically, several members of the public said, what is the purpose of the workshop? So a whole other paragraph has to be crafted.
I would keep it very
to
basic and
show
simple.
that
It's not a,
we're asking the public
For input.
for their opinion about proposed changes, because my original.
yeah, keep
draft
it
didn't show
that simple. Keep it
Yeah.
that simple.
Yeah.
Because if you go into a diatribe, it's gonna be like, wow.
No, there's no room for
Yeah.
a diatribe.
Next one is personal Facebook pages. If y'all have Facebook pages and post it to the 10th. Margaret, something about News Channel 9.
Other community board, it comes up every commercial.
And then I can certainly follow up with the village on if there's, how we have those, no yard waste between October 15th
yeah.
and April. Maybe something along those lines. I don't
That's
know.
the sign.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Those
Uh,
would be
Get
great.
them, I could try to get them around there.
Yeah. Oh, they will.
Oh, I do. I see the ones in Saratoga. I pay attention to the ones in
Drop the
Saratoga.
line on the corners to make it more visible on Division and West North, so everybody can see it like perfectly. I like this location better.
And then,
Um,
the posters in various community bulletin
Okay,
boards. I was
so
just
that's what we
saying,
have. Is there any
put it-
any other vector that we're on the topic of awareness? Anything else we should do to get the word out?
I think that, based on everything what was just said, I don't know that there's any reason why we have to absolutely commit to the 10th. I think giving ourselves until a week to the 17th would free up all of the things we just talked about and get a more effective result.
I think when we come back on the 3rd, we can make that decision.
I'm gonna throw it out there for.
No?
Today.
Alright, so let's make a decision now. No, I guess we have to make a decision now if we're gonna go with the 10th or push.
I'm on top.
Remind me more time.
I am also, I'm gonna get something.
I'm on here for the 3rd and the 10th.
I'm out of town, eat the 3rd.
I'm out of town. I'm out of town when I go to June. We're gonna.
We couldn't get the space.
What would happen?
Space. We only
Yeah.
have the space for the first and third Thursday of each month.
At some point, they're gonna start using this for,
Rolling into, this is
Yeah.
Board of Elections here. We're gonna be out of business, for most of October. And I'm just saying, we got the 10th. We either have to go with it, knowing that Chris is going to edit the boards according to what the ZAC wants. Or else we postpone this to some time that's more favorable in 2025.
Well, I see we
Not
have also the
moving.
17th.
What I just said.
We have the 17th and we're supposed to do a tabletop on the November 7th. So is there a concern with getting location for the 17th of October?
We don't have it reserved for this.
Have it all the way, we have a reserve. I thought you said we reserved them all the way through this year. 17th, 7th, 21st of November, 5th of December, 19th of December.
I remember
all the way
that.
through. I've got them all listed here.
Let me see here.
Take it.
The 17th, excuse me, that is a ZAC meeting, that is the third Thursday, and we do have the 10th.
And we can.
The 17th Again, I would have to look back at extensions. If they've constricted this room, like this is just training tonight. Actually, early voting starts on the 26th. So if we have the whole room, it's okay. If we only have half the room for the Cornell, it's not.
Can you find out?
I can.
Okay.
So if we have it, can we all agree that's the 17th?
Reserve.
Provided Chris can make
Oh.
it work as well.
All right.
This is Chris's show.
That's all I forgot.
Yeah. And we've really, just personally myself, I really want Chris to be part of this whole process.
Well, he is.
He's been absent. He's been absent too much. He needs to be more involved. I realize we've hired the lowest bidder. He's got to do better.
But can we've agreed that if the room is available and Chris is available, we're moving it to the 17th. Otherwise, we're doing it on the 10th, right?
Correct.
Do we have a date when we need to know that by in order to know that we can do promotion for the 10th?
I will ask the extension office tomorrow if the whole room is available, and if it is, then it's the 17th.
Is there a reason we have to have it here?
Yes,
What's the reason?
it's physically accessible.
It's within the village, I
It's
think, is
in
the
the
requirement,
village.
and it's big enough.
We've got parking. We have
There's the
Restaurant
VFW, there's American Legion, there's the factory.
yeah, no,
The Elks Club is perfect.
we've got
Yeah, that's
access to
a
the
good idea, too.
technology. Those places have a big screen, and we don't have the space. This will hold several hundred people. I think it's 174, according to what I believe I saw up there.
If I'm not mistaken, I think there are also requirements that we have to meet. We can't meet on private property. and
Yes.
I'm not sure how else or something
Yeah,
like that.
there's something like that too.
Yeah.
I'd imagine that going either way.
Okay, so I will reach out to Chris to see if he is available for the 17th. Marilyn, you're gonna see if this whole room is available the
Yeah.
17th. We'll do that as soon as humanly possible because it's going to matter about awareness, communication,
Yeah.
communication.
8 a.m. tomorrow. I'll know and I'll send it.
Beautiful, and I'll fire off an email to Chris tonight, see if he's available. So any more time than just that. That'll give us the 10th to also button up this and give us a little more breathing room. As well.
It will,
Okay.
yeah, and keep us away from long weekends, which I think will cut in on, people participating.
Yeah.
I'll also check with the schools to see if there's some sort of a PTA conflict, that sometimes comes into play, like it's, if it's parent teacher night or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, anything else before moving to the last topic? All right. All right, public comment. Anyone on Zoom or in the room have public comment?
Yes.
Yes, come on up.
So I'm Gary Stevenson, a member of the Historic District Commission, actually vice chairman.
Here, let me get the microphone here. There we go.
And there seems to be some misinformation that there has been contact between Chris and the Historic District Commission. There absolutely has been none. Okay, so there's been no input from the Historic District Commission into this process, and that needs to change, I would say. To Roy's point about the historic district definition, there are definitions out there. There's one that's been provided to you by John Cromie that apparently has not been distributed to the group. So there is a definition. It is possible. It's a common thing. Okay, so it's not something that's impossible. And just to reinforce Roy's point, and this is a great quote, if you don't have a parking problem, you have a bigger problem. So I think, the point about people who just aren't willing to walk, whatever, is a very valid point. Okay, if we have the attractions here, people will find a way to get to them. So I just want to reinforce that. On that image of the downtown, one of the issues that we have with the village is we have many different styles and periods of development of the village. That's one of the things that makes it very attractive. And to try and say, this Victorian style here in brick
is what we want in the downtown, it's gonna create a sameness that we don't want, okay? There's Greek revival, there's craftsman, there's colonial styles, there's all kinds of styles, and that's what makes the village, okay? So I would just have to say that we need to be cognizant of that and not try and zero in on one particular style or one particular type of building. And I think that's pretty much my comments. I did think when you were talking about the downtown, you know, one of the questions to ask is, would you allow a Cumberland Farms again? You know, would you allow some of those other kind of what some people consider eyesores? You know, and just see what people say about those things, and that, you know, is that something we really want in the village, in downtown, or in a transitional area or whatever? So, and I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
A couple comments, if we, show Cumberland Farms and say, you want one of these? Yeah.
Here, please.
This is my word.
Yes, it was. You have to turn it on. Turn it on.
Okay, yeah, I agree with Gary's statement about, maybe show what in that one in the northern area, they show, Ocean State, people don't think that's particularly attractive. One other suggestion, look at I think it's not zoning yet, but the plan Milton did for that end of town, for offering that. And I believe in, Ballston's vision for what happens, beyond the village boundaries, and it would be good to look at those and then see, maybe we could tie into that so we get more of a continuum. This is the greater village area, and so, I know in the north end they were talking about maybe even, increased landscaping and sidewalks and things like that. We don't want them redoing all that end to make it more attractive and then it stops. So that's just one suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
So it's on there. I just was hoping to make some recommendations after looking at the boards. I think it might be really useful to educate the public before we ask them questions. And one way of doing that is maybe have side by side on a larger board where you say existing zoning, proposed zoning. Also, maybe have a board showing something from the comprehensive plan, saying this was the general area where we want, the idea we had, and then show the proposed zoning next to it. The other thing that we're leaving out that I think Marilyn made a great point, somewhere we should have existing land use, not existing zoning, existing land use, because I think that's important for people to recognize. Say, okay, yeah, that's what the village I see. Okay, this is what you're proposing. Because just having the zoning, she made a great point, that doesn't actually reflect what's there. And I think it's important because people will be confused. I was like, where's the park? Where's, this building? That's not what's there. I think that's an important graphic to have. I also felt in regards to the historic district, I think it should be on the proposed. And maybe you put in that asterisk or put in parentheses, subject to change. Because the impression people get is, oh, we're getting rid of the historic district because it's not there. So I think that will add even more regarding it. This is going to be like a charrette.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've done those in my profession. The one thing you can do to help yourself as much as possible is your boards as self-explanatory
as possible. Because you're gonna have, it just aids the process. And it also, as I said, comes to them and say, here's where we're at. And I don't see a negative benefit from having something regarding a PDD. But I don't think you're getting a lead on it. I think you provide a definition of a PDD, because at some point it's going to show up in a draft or a plan, and we should educate the public. This is what the definition of a PDD is. Maybe define its purpose. You know, what is it used for? And you could get input. You could say, would you, what would you prefer? More zoning with flexibility, or just use a PDD and keep more robust rigid zoning? I mean, those are two easy questions that you can get, because PDDs aren't typically, you don't need them if your zoning has enough flexibility in it to provide for multiple land uses. And PDDs are typically used for more larger parcels, usually 5 or more acres. So, that's another thing to consider. Maybe there's areas like the old nursing home that makes sense to be PDD, because it opens up what different types. And obviously there's safeguards in the PDD process, public, that can be used to make sure that it gets guided to something that, the public wants. And the only thing I would say is, when you're doing this, it's very difficult, but try to leave your biases at home. Try to be completely objective, and convey the information to the public that way. You'll get your best results that way. And I think the only other thing I would add is that don't necessarily think that the public won't understand, because there's a lot of people that get it or will grasp it. But I think it's important that I thought it was a great idea that postponed it to another week, because this is going to take some time to flesh out, and you really want it to be right, because this is where you're going to get your best feedback. That's all.
Anyone else? Yes. Here, as long as the microphone is there. Oh.
Interesting. Well, thanks. First, there was some back and forth discussion, just to clear up stuff here with Historic District, when there was the site tour in the library basement discussion. John Crumley was there, Marilyn, Rory, and I were all giving discussion points similar to the stuff you heard tonight. So there was discussion with respect to that evening or afternoon, whatever, being there. It was the afternoon. So there has been back and forth of some level, at the very least. One thing I'm going to say on one hand here, I'm here to be as supportive as possible. Like the question of the water bill situation, I was just corresponding with Jennifer about this, because my memory was, and she confirmed it was too late to go into the water bill because there's a lead time. And so that's why I couldn't. And so from there, we didn't have any other solutions at that point in time to rush out another mailing. But, there are different things we can do. We got another week now too to give us some lead time to help you out. So just let us know what you need. It's pretty simple. She's as helpful as she gets in our office, and she's always going to give you a yes at the end of the day. Thanks, Jen. I was already working, thanks to Rory, putting me in contact with Aaron McCready, who was on his planning board as an alternate, with respect to doing a survey, because I need to be better informed. And you're talking about a little bit about stuff next to the state, about opinions on ADUs and short-term rentals, ultimately, because I don't know what the pulse is in this community. And it is such an important hot button issue right now in the community that regardless of what you did here, I still need to get informed myself to have an understanding. So I was going to put out a survey, especially focused on people that live in or work in or own businesses or property in the village, because they're the ones who are going to have to live with it at the end of the day. So hearing the back and forth tonight, it sounds like you want to hit that topic, but you could very easily get buried by that topic in venue like that. So if you would like me to maybe expedite getting something like that together and out so that I can give you results and we can all learn from it, I'm happy to do that in a way that gives you a better look at that without burying that discussion that night on just that topic. Because I have a feeling that's going to be the thing that attracts almost the most stuff that night. Just a thought, up to you guys ultimately, what you want to do with that.
Who would have the input into the questions and how would it get out?
So I'm happy to, go to the board members as well to see if they have any additional stuff they want to glean from it too. Because again, it was originally to inform us about where things stood. But if you want to give us a couple of additional questions, we don't want to overburden it with too many questions. We want people to, fill it out. But there's some good stuff. Aaron found some stuff that was informative to educate on what's an ADU, what's short-term rental, and different things like that. Right at the front of it in a Google form format. It was actually very good. We just have to refine before I would call it a ready to go draft situation.
Would it do?
I basically will put it out the same way we'll push out information about your meeting coming up, and to get as many people doing it. We'll get our code if people want to put together something printed on it and to give to their neighbors, whatever. So I might not do a formal mailing of it, but we can get it out to pretty much the entire community business district ultimately.
I think we have to rely on our consultant to help us craft that question.
Okay, that's good, but I'm going to still be doing it because I want to be informed about what our community wants. So regardless, it's going to happen from my perspective for when we are getting ready to handle it. It could help you. It's up to you, like I said. So I want to belabor. We're at 9 o'clock right now. The last thing I want to say is I know you heard about what happened in the last meeting. In the same spirit, I'm here to help. The board is here to help. I get uncomfortable when we're basically here telling you do this, don't do that, and everything else. If there's something you need, tell us. If there's something that we have to offer, we're going to kindly say, up to you. If you need this, great, like I'm doing right now with this survey idea. But this is your baby. We'll have our time with this. We'll happily let you do whatever you need to do. We'd love to see it sooner rather than later. Don't get me wrong. Okay, so I think it helps everybody's case to make sure this gets put in place as quickly as possible, but do it in the right way. Taking the extra week makes complete sense. I'm glad to hear that might happen if you feel that's what you need. Our job as a board right now is to give you the space to do what you need to do and be there to support you in the things you need support on, period. If you ever feel otherwise is happening out there, let us know. And I'm happy to run interference, tell our attorney to run interference or whatever to make sure you have spending you need, get your work done and your job done. That's the most important thing. Thank you very much for all you do.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Anyone else on Zoom?
Yep, I have, trustee Baskin has his hand up. Hold on 1 second.
Sure thing.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Couple points I'd like to make. This is absolutely not the mayor's committee. I don't have to ask where that idea came from, but the mayor did not write the charter. The mayor did not write the law by which this committee was formed, and the whole board was involved in nominating members. It is a village committee. It has become quite clear from multiple sources that this is not just Chris's draft, that there are conversations outside of the committee where he is told what to put in and take out, and like told, not just advised. And that is inappropriate. The other comment that I heard that was very alarming is that the comp plan is not the guiding document for zoning. It absolutely is by law, the most important document guiding the zoning process. The other thing I'd like to say, I'm surprised it didn't come up, but in your charter, it says that all documents in your work are to be public. It's upon request. It's not a choice. It's not something you can turn on or off based on whether you like the feedback or not. It's supposed to be public and remain public. The green space currently, I think putting green space will not confuse people. I think will orient people to be, oh, there's Wiswall. Now I know where I am in the map. And I don't know, you may want green space zoning. If it's zoned residential, it means at some point in the future, somebody could build houses on those parks. So I don't know if you want it to be residential. In the contract with Fisher is a second workshop. I haven't heard mention of a second workshop. That is something we are paying for. And so as you think about the first workshop, think about how it relates to the second. If you read the contract, Chris talks about that a little bit. You may want to put historic district in addition to on the map, put it under additional issues or other issues. The PDD absolutely has to be on that list. It is basically the absence of zoning. You'll be shooting yourself in the foot if your zoning includes a statement that says that PDDs can be of any size, anywhere, of any use, anywhere in the village. That is the absence of zoning. You could have great zoning, but the PDD will negate that. Just to let you know, the Monaco building was sold. It has been bought, and it is being developed by an artist for an art space. So that's happening, and you don't have to be worried about 4 stories there right now. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else on Zoom?
No, that's it.
All right, 2 points. One, no one said that the comp plan is not our guiding. There was more discussion, more nuance in that. And 2, regarding the charter, that line that Director Trustee Baskin is referring to, I did reach out to the village and village council on guidance on that one. So yeah, those are the 2 topics. With that said, motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Get out of here. Jen, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Good night, guys.